Bum 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 ba-da-dum bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-dum bum. Hello, and welcome to episode 26 of Rhythm Encounter. We are back after our Music of the Year extravaganza with our regular themed episodes. I am your host, Caitlin Arderos, Lynn Cazzaro on the boards, and I'm joined as always by you're still my co-host, Mike. You'll never escape the co-host.
I am perpetually the Coco host, and I've accepted it.
Good.
Go, Coco.
Yes. So I'm Mike on the boards.
And we have a special guest with us, one of our dear friends at RPGFan, now RPGFan editor Emeritus, Liz Maas.
Hello, I'm Liz, and I am curious to say that fabulous Ellison on the boards.
You are so fab. Your fab kind of out-fabs our fab, I think.
Depends on what it is.
Well, you mean,
Ellison. You guys are still totally fabulous. Don't worry.
Ellison kind of out-fab the other races just by virtue of being Ellison, so, Mike and I have to work a little harder to be fab, I think.
I don't know, Mike's got a really fabulous haircut right now.
He does, doesn't he? We're, of course, talking about our characters in Final Fantasy XIV because, well,
I'm sure that's a shock to everybody.
Yes, it's a shock. It's kind of hard to stop us from talking about that game when we're all together, but we will try, and we will achieve that goal by talking about our recent tracks for this episode. Starting us off, we have Distant Scenery from Read Only Memories, and then we have Camp Approach from Firewatch, and our last recent pick is Dance with the Balam Fish from Successor, the new Final Fantasy VIII remix album from Materia Collective. So let's have a listen to those tracks, and we'll talk about them, and good times.
There once was a man from Allentown, with a scar on his face and a permanent frown. He had no friends or family, and he fell for a girl called Heartily. Have you ever had a dance with the Ballum fish? Oh, he's a son of a got 2 left feet and he loves a witch. Oh, he's a son of a. There once was a man from Yellingtown, with a gun in his hand and a heart so proud. But his leg cramped up when he lost his nerve, like a deer in the sights of a beautiful girl. Have you ever had a dance with the Ballum fish? Oh, he's a son of a got 2 left feet and he loves a witch. Oh, he's a son of a. Row, row so heartily, hear the sirens calling. Row, row so heartily, as we dance with the Ballum fishes. Row so heartily, hear the sirens calling. Row so heartily, as we dance with the Ballum fishes. As we dance with the Ballum fish.
So, Read Only Memories, by all accounts, is a fantastic game, and the soundtrack as well apparently is also fantastic. Kind of weird story, but I ended up proofing both the game and the soundtrack review for Read Only Memories, and I didn't quite realize that until I was listening to the song. It's like, wait a second, did I do this? I did. Wow. And despite reading both those reviews, I wasn't actually expecting the track to sound this sort of hauntingly cool with that sax. Kind of surprised me. I was not expecting it based on what I had seen of the game, the style of the game. It's fairly kind of a retro-looking, cyberpunk-esque game. But it was really cool to hear that, and I feel like based on what little I know of the game, the premises of the game, it kind of fits that setting. You're investigating the disappearance of a friend, and there's some unseemly stuff going down in this futuristic city, so that sort of jazzy feel with the saxophone kind of fits the whole sort of dystopian, maybe kind of society thing going on here, and there's some weird stuff possibly going on. And I may be talking out of my butt, but that's kind of the feeling I got from the track itself, and I usually kind of go with my gut when it comes to, how a track makes me feel about a particular game. So it served me well for the most part.
I actually almost picked a song. It's kind of cheating because we had a song from Valhalla in one of the last episodes. And since that episode, they released their second soundtrack. So I was kind of going to double dip and pick another one to represent our recent stuff. And then I found this, and it actually has a similar feel to it. At least this song. I'm not sure about the whole soundtrack, but it has this really neat, kind of serene feel to it.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
That saxophone, I wouldn't want to listen to this track if I was really tired. Because it's really pretty, but it would definitely lull me. Maybe I should listen to it if I need sleep. All I could think of when I was listening is that and maybe I shouldn't admit this, but when I was a kid, I watched the Weather Channel a lot, and I don't know why. I don't know why I watched it, but I would always fall asleep to it.
They like using like jazzy stuff when they're like doing their this is the weather in this city and that city.
Yeah. Well, like now the Weather Channel has a lot of different shows. Like back then, you know, in the 90s, there wasn't a whole lot of different shows, storm tracking and this stuff. It was every 4 or 5 minutes, let's go to the weather. And it was just those little graphics and Kenny G or whatever saxophone was playing. And boy did I sleep good. So that's I think that's part of why I like this one, because it takes me back to falling asleep to the Weather Channel. Liz, what do you think?
About the same, actually. It's very pretty, but it'll lull me to sleep in no time. And as someone who sleeps 5 hours a night, that's really easy.
I'm kind of in the same boat there, so maybe I should add it to my nightly regimen to help me get turned down for bed.
I actually thought it was from one of the Prescription for Sleep albums at first.
It would fit in there perfectly, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That would be kind of cool, I think, to have them do some arrangements of tracks from games like Read Only Memories and, well, Undertale, you know, being what it is, but also, you know, those sort of, not the AAA super duper high graphics with orchestral soundtracks, but the stuff that's sort of harkening back to ye old games, just because, I don't know, I think that might not be quite as expected as your ye old Final Fantasies and
Exactly.
Final Fantasy.
Well, good news, because the way the Undertale community goes, I'm sure as you said that sentence, someone created that album for Undertale.
Yeah.
It's already happened.
Like, oh, good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how the community has exploded with enthusiasm and creativity for that game. It's very encouraging to see that kind of passion for any game, but especially a game like Undertale, which was, I don't know, I think in a lot of people's eyes perhaps was a bit of an underdog, if I may make that pun. But I think it's great for the medium, for video games in general, but also for video game music to have that kind of passion and excitement for that music. And it does really lend itself well to being worked like that. And I'm getting off topic, so why don't we move on to the next track, which is Kev Approach from Firewatch. So I think Steven has mentioned this before, and I agree with him. This is basically the PS4's version of The Long Dark. It's got a similar sort of design aesthetic. It's not as much about survival. It's very much a sort of you walk around adventure, solving a mystery kind of game. But the minimalistic nature of the art style reminded me instantly of The Long Dark. And just because minimalistic doesn't mean it can't be beautiful, this track plays relatively early in the game, early into your time as a fire lookout in a national park, and you are approaching this beautiful little grove of birch trees, and there's a stream flowing through it. You're making your way to find some troublesome campers, and you just happen upon this grove of trees, and the music starts up, and it's an incredibly peaceful scene from everything, from the visuals, from the music. All of it just kind of works together. I seriously got there and I sat around for like 15 to 20 minutes just staring, taking pictures, and listening to this music because it was so well, I've said it before, peaceful, serene, relaxing. And it's one of my favorite tracks on the soundtrack, there's some really good music throughout the soundtrack. I would very much recommend people check it out if they've played the game or if they're interested in playing the game. It's a great accompaniment to what you're doing in the game.
I need to play the game again and maybe wander around some more.
Yes.
Because I didn't do as much of that as I thought I would. Every time I wanted to wander and do what you did, listen to the music, I wanted to hear more of the story. So I kept wanting to move forward and talk to Delilah more. But it's a short enough game that I think you can easily go back and do like a longer playthrough.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because I didn't, there's that whole thing with the turtle. I didn't I didn't do that. I don't know how I missed that, but I never saw any of that.
I don't know. I think he might be a little random. I found him in one place on my playthrough, but then I was watching someone else play and they found him in a different place. So it might be random. It might be, well, it might be like Dee Dee from Metal Gear Solid 5, where it's random where he shows up. And you might have to hunt for him a little bit. But that turtle is worth it. So worth it.
All right. Well, I will do that, and I do recommend anyone else listening, if you haven't played Firewatch.
Like me!
Yes. It's a really interesting, like, narrative heavy. How long did it take you, Caitlin? Like 3-4 hours?
Probably somewhere more between 4 to 6, but I'm a slow player. Like, I usually take longer than most people to finish a game. I would say, depending, if you work through games at a good clip, 4 to 5 hours probably at the max.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you found Turt Reynolds and I did not.
Yes. And that's not even the only name you can give him. There are other names you can give him that are puns off of, turtles and shells and stuff like that. But Turt Reynolds was, like, hard to pass up.
That's true.
And now we know why Caitlin loves that part so much.
Yes.
There's lots of things I've heard about Firewatch that should get me to play it, and this music definitely helps. Like I said, I haven't played it yet, but this song, this camera approach, it's so pretty, and it's like the first one where it's nice and pretty and calm, but it's not like sleep inducing. It's actually kind of the opposite. Like, it feels like something you'd hear like first thing in the morning, just like waking up and there's like a sunrise. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
Pretty accurate, actually.
Yeah.
And honestly, I know nothing about the game, so that's a coincidence if it's actually how it plays.
Well, each like mini chapter of the game is a new day, so it usually does start with the sun rising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's when this song plays. Oh, good to know.
Actually, I think it's sunset, but it's, similar kind of feeling going on there. Everything's bathed in oranges and yellows, and it's very, very pretty.
Oh, so much orange in that game.
That's how the song plays in my head. Like, just removing it from Firewatch, that's how it plays in my head, is like bathed in oranges and yellows and stuff like that.
It's good stuff. I have to listen to it again after we're done.
Yeah. If you can get the next track out of your head first.
Yeah, because that's the challenge.
Yeah, good luck with that.
This is so the title is the ball that they have early on in the game where Squall meets Renoa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But this sounds absolutely nothing like that. It's like a pirate shanty, complete with a parrot, probably a parrot chocobo because it's Final Fantasy, squawking "Ballonfish" in the background. And I don't know, I love it just because of how they describe Squall, like a perpetual frown. He's got 2 left feet because he does have 2 left feet. If you ever watch that cutscene, yeah. So it's perfect. But this is one of the things I love about the Materia albums is when they do these vocal tracks. And we were talking off air about the Aristides track from Materia. This is maybe not quite that, but it has a similar kind of silly, what the hey, we're just gonna sing the truth about these characters kind of feel to it.
Oh my god, it is not what I was expecting when I started playing the track. And I had to listen to it again because I spent the first minute like laughing through it. But it's actually super catchy and fun. But now, I'm always going to have this image in my head of pirates and fish dancing on like a pirate ship deck or something. And I don't know how I feel about that.
Have you ever danced with the Ballonfish in the pale moonlight? I had to do it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't know how I feel about it either, but I think I decided this was the best way to represent this album. Not that it really represents anything else on there, but if anyone hasn't listened to it yet, this is the random kind of thing you can expect from these albums. Because there's a lot of really, really good arrangements of Final Fantasy VIII in all different styles. There's jazz stuff, there's a lot of rock stuff, And then there's this for no good reason, and I just love that because Materia was the same way. You would listen and you had no idea what was coming up in the next track. And I'm a fan of random.
It wouldn't have anything to do with us having another podcast called Random Encounter, would it?
No. Thank you, dog. Thank you, dog, for chiming in. You're not... Even though they weren't invited to the show.
You can cut that part out if you want, Mike. That was a bad joke.
I know, but I want to keep the
I
dog
think
thing.
you keep it in.
Well, okay. I am overruled.
Yes.
All right, well, that's it for our recent picks. Let's get on with the good stuff. Our theme for this episode is something that's very special to all three of us, and I imagine a lot of our listeners as well. It's our Chrono episode, where we play music from Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. As you may know, last year, 2015, was the 20th anniversary for Chrono Trigger and the 15th anniversary for Chrono Cross, and there were a lot of great albums that came out, either coincidentally or because of the anniversary, to sort of celebrate these two great games. And we really wanted to have an episode to pay tribute to that too. Our original plan was to do this in 2015, but then we got kind of carried away with Music of the Year, and it got delayed a little bit. And, you know, it's the thought that counts. So it's time to talk about Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. And I think I have the first pick. Yes, I do. So I picked Chrono Trigger Allegro con Brio. I may be butchering that, but yeah. From the new Chrono Trigger Arrange album, Chronicles of Time, which is a really awesome string quartet version of the main theme of Chrono Trigger. And then, Liz, I think you had our next pick.
I picked Against the Wind from Chrono Cinematica. Chrono Cinematica. It's a take on Magus' theme, which with a couple of other themes incorporated within it. In Chrono Cinematica, if you're not familiar with it, it's a really, as you can imagine, cinematic take on Chrono songs. And it's as beautiful as you can imagine. So go listen to it.
And then Mike.
And then I picked Star Stealing Girl from Chrono Cross.
Yay!
Yay!
Yes. You know, we have a file, a database that Caitlin so graciously set up that lists all of the songs we played on the show, so we don't repeat things if we can help it. And I was shocked that we had not played this, and I was happy because it's one of my favorite ones on the album.
It's an excellent pick. It was on my short list way back when we were planning this, like back in November or something. So I'm glad you picked it. So let's take a listen to Chrono Trigger Allegro con Brio, Against the Wind, and Star Stealing Girl. So the main theme from Chrono Trigger is still, I think, to this day, one of the most iconic themes from an RPG or even just a video game in general. I think it's hard to imagine someone who hasn't heard this in some capacity, even if they've never played or even seen the game. I feel in my own biased way, being a super RPG fan, that this is one of those things alongside, like, I don't know, Halo music and Super Mario themes that everyone has heard at some point. And this is a really amazing string quartet arrangement of that theme. And I feel like it's something, it's something to say, oh, it's a good arrangement, but to do a string quartet arrangement, to have all those moving parts that are harmonizing and working with each other, there's no percussion involved, so you have to find a way to have the music sort of fill in that space that would normally be filled by some percussion and whatnot. It can be really challenging. I'm thinking about the effort it would take to write the sheet music for it alone is kind of staggering. But this is a beautiful arrangement. I love how you can always hear the theme and it always sounds like the main theme, but there's lots of different moving parts and harmonies that are sort of, more unique and give it a bit of a new flavor, so that it doesn't feel like it's just, I'm just putting the main melody in strings and playing it. No, this isn't a piece of art in and of itself.
Wow, I don't think we can top that.
Well, you can try.
I know, I can't.
You called it a piece of art. I mean, that's
I did.
I know. It's a piece of art. It's an iconic song. And I don't think you're wrong about, I hope you're not wrong about it being as well known as you think. Because you haven't played the game, have you?
No, I haven't.
Exactly.
I'm bad, but I know this theme.
Exactly. So you say all that from experience.
Yeah, I do. I'm bad. I'm sorry.
No.
It's on my bucket list. If there's one thing that I will definitely do before I die, it is to play Chrono Trigger at some point.
You must.
I will. I promise.
Play the DS one, because it has no loading times.
Ooh.
Yes. Don't play the PlayStation.
Good.
No.
I was thinking about getting it on DS just because I need more games to play on my 3DS.
Yeah.
I recommend it. That song, it's been covered a lot, and it's hard to screw up. It's really hard to screw up. But I especially love that version because of all the strings and just how it turns out. Just like Caitlin said, like all the moving parts just like comes together. And of course, it's also one of my favorite Chrono songs. It's the very first one you hear. What more do you want? But no, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I remember it plays at certain points in Chrono Cross, like the Dream That Time Dreams, which is, I think, if I have my titles correct, it's sort of like the Attract movie music that plays if you stay on the title screen too long. It's worked in there along with Chrono Cross's own theme. And it's like, it
goes back and forth between the two.
Yeah, and I forget where I'd heard the original from at some point, but even, watching that, I was like, I could feel the nostalgia, despite not having actually played the game myself. I was like, this is really cool. And it kind of grounds that game sort of in the same world and tradition and whatnot.
Yeah, it really does. Like, it's its own game, but at the same time, it's like, remember, this is also like a follow-up to Chrono Trigger. And it just ties it in nicely.
Are we moving on?
Yeah.
I think we are. So, Liz, tell us about your pick.
Well, if Chrono Trigger was made in modern day, or at least in the last 10 or so years, Against the Wind is kind of what I imagine walking up to Magus's castle would sound like, especially in the beginning with like the wind and everything, and just the whole creepiness that surrounds it as you're approaching. And of course, then it goes right into Magus's theme, which is one of my favorite tracks and one of my favorite points in Chrono Trigger. Not only that, just the whole like, this is what it would sound like in modern day, but just also how they incorporate Frog's theme. Whereas, like, if you don't bring Frog to that fight, you're just wrong and should feel wrong. I'm telling you that now.
You're bad and you should
And-
feel bad.
Exactly. So I like how they incorporated that in briefly, and then not only that, but at the end, you've got Lavos' theme coming up, because of course, Magnus is one of many that was trying to harness Lavos' power. So I just like how it focuses on Magus, but then things that are connect to him, like Frog, and of course Lavos.
Yeah. We talked, for anyone who didn't listen yet, and I don't know if you listened, I'm sure you know this, but the Chrono Cinematic album, just in general, is kind of meant to be as if it was a movie soundtrack. Sort of. That's why there's different themes incorporated in each track. So it's mostly Magus's theme, but that's how all the tracks play out, and I think that's a really interesting approach to an arrangement album.
Oh, it's awesome.
And so, I mean, it really works here. All those themes work perfectly together with the story, as anyone who actually played the games would know. And really, no retort?
What? from me? Do you really want to hear me say, yes, Michael, I will play it someday again?
A little bit.
You already told us that.
No, I know. No, I think that's actually one of my favorite arrangements of Magus's theme. I wrote down in my notes that, of course, it's an epic song, but I also think big. If that makes any sense to anyone, it's a very big, epic song, or rendition of that.
It's an epic rendition of an epic song.
Well, it's just such a cool moment in the game because, you know, it almost feels like you're at the end because you've been chasing this guy for how many hours? So
Exactly.
there's a lot of setup to this moment. So it really needed a big, important, iconic song, and that's what this is.
I also feel like having like Lavos' theme at the end reminds you that what you found out in the game was you are far from the end, like so far.
Yes.
Yeah, I love everything that I've heard from Sam Dillard, from anything, Chrono Cinematica. I very much hope we'll get the same treatment down the road for Chrono Cross. I know if I'm not mistaken, he's done a few things from Chrono Cross on, I believe I remember hearing stuff on SoundCloud, so maybe that will eventually be a thing. But this is, I think I've said this before because I know we've had tracks from Chrono Cinematica on the podcast before, but I feel like this is a great way to not only showcase and show your love and work with these classic themes, but also just to show that game music can indeed work like a traditional film score. I know that some people might have a different opinion based on different games. I know it's always been hard to convince my parents that video game music is worthwhile and is not just noise and is actually worth listening to on its own, independent of the actual game you're playing. And I feel like this is one of those projects, and the whole of Chrono Cinematica is one of those projects that could really, you could say, hey, look at this. It's not just noise. It is totally worthwhile music. And not to say that the original soundtrack isn't worthy, but just, this is one of those things I feel like could be used to convince the more skeptical people out there, the people that aren't really into games the way that a lot of us are, that, hey, this is good music. You could listen to this independent of the game and have a great listening experience.
I think you're right on with that. One of my go-to tracks for that, to convince people, when you say, hey, I listen to video game music, and you get that look that I'm sure you've all experienced.
Yes.
My go-to track always used to be "The Best Is Yet to Come" from Metal Gear Solid.
Oh,
yes.
And and you don't tell them. I don't say this is from a game. I'm like, listen to this. What did you think? And no one doesn't like that song. And then I say, surprise! You just listened to a video game music track
from 1999,
Yeah.
no less.
I know.
And then their eyes bug out and they're like, oh no, everything I thought about the world is wrong. Up is down, right is left.
Right.
What is this?
I mean, now, this was back in 1998, but now there's so many things to choose from, and I think this is another one. If you know any skeptics, and I'm sure everyone does, like, just let them hear some of this, and I'm thinking you could change people's tunes.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
And then when you... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, we will get a video game album on the Grammys someday.
Someday.
It will happen.
Well, didn't we? I thought Austin Wintory won something. Didn't he win a Grammy, or am I mixing it up with something else?
Oh, maybe. I mean, to be honest, I don't really watch the Grammys all that much, beyond, like, stuff on Twitter and stuff like that, so...
Yeah, I thought he won a... Oh, man, I hope it was a Grammy.
Well, then, okay.
For Journey.
Oh, he won something, yeah, but I don't remember if it was a Grammy or, like...
I wouldn't doubt it. So maybe that day is already here, but we still need more moments.
More, yeah. Definitely.
Definitely need more moments. Speaking of moments, I remember there being some really serious moments going on when Star Stealing Girl is playing in Chrono Cross, like some really dramatic stuff.
I am a terrible person because I've played the game twice, although the last time I played it was in 2000. So I don't remember exactly where this plays, so if you want to remind me...
What I remember is the orphanage burning down.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Lynx is there. It's like you're back in time or whatnot, and you're seeing what happened before the game starts or whatnot. And that's all I remember, unfortunately, too. But that's the dramatic event that I remember happening, like, right before this track plays.
Right.
I had forgotten as well, but I remember actually crying when this song was playing during that scene.
It's so emotional. I mean, that sad piano playing
so
throughout, and when the whistle, and then I mean, it's some sort of synth, although it's fairly convincing, kind of, for a synth of a girl who, I don't know if it's just supposed to be a random girl or if it's supposed to represent Kid.
I thought it was supposed to represent Kid, but that's
Yeah, I think so. That's how I felt anyway.
It's definitely one of the saddest video game songs I've ever heard.
It's so
and
sad.
And I've felt a lot of sad ones playing a lot of RPGs, so
yeah.
It's just, I just remember, like, bawling.
It's still, there's a lot of sad songs, but I think this is, I don't know of another song that's such a combination of sad, but it's still it's a really pretty song.
Yeah.
But you still want to cry when you listen to it.
Oh, yeah.
So. I might be crying right now.
I know. I'm sorry for everyone who had to cry and listen to it.
But it's a good cry.
Well,
I think.
That's part of why I wanted it kind of in the middle of the episode, so you can cry and get your feelings out, but then we'll, like, bring you back up moving forward.
Yes. Well, okay, then let's move forward to our next block, in which, Liz, I think you had our first pick.
I had our other favorite Chrono opening song, which is Scars of Time by Chrono Cross, the original version.
And then Mike?
Oh, yeah, that's me, huh?
Poke.
Poke. I am on a mission to represent Chronicles of Time a lot. Well, I guess we all are, looking at the track list here. But there's a few series of songs on the album. I think there's three, like, trilogies of tracks. And one of them is the set of track called Eons 1, 2, and 3. And they're basically, unless you guys know a better term, D-makes. They're basically like 8-bit versions or 8-bit arrangements of Chrono Trigger music. And each one's a different kind of grouping of tracks. So this is the first of those three.
And then I had the last pick. We finally got the Arrange album that we've been salivating over for Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross last year. It was a brilliant album and a great surprise, because I think we'd kind of been clamoring it for so long that we kind of was like, is it ever going to actually happen? Maybe I should just, like, put it in the back of my mind because who knows if we'll ever get it. And then we got it, and it was amazing. And my pick is Shala's theme and the full title is Too Far Away Times, or Haruka Naru Toki no Kanate, the Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross Arrange album, sung by the absolutely amazing Laura Shigihara. So let's take a listen to Scars of Time from Chrono Cross, Eons 1 from Chronicles of Time, and Shala's theme from Too Far Away Times. So, this is one of those tracks that it's been remixed and arranged a lot. We've heard it performed by actual full orchestras, and it's never to me as good as the original version on the soundtrack. This version, there's just something really great about how the strings and the drums, the energy that they have and that they bring in this piece that still I don't think I've ever really heard done to perfection in a real world setting. Not that it can't be. I fully, if anyone has, a version that they've heard that they think is really good, by all means share it with us. I would love to be proven wrong, but this is still like the version that I would usually like to hear the most is, why change a classic? Why not go with the original when the original is pretty much perfection as it stands? And I said a lot of really big things there, so feel free to take me down a peg.
No, you're totally right. Of all the different versions of this song I've heard, there's something, I don't know, something that doesn't get captured. Whether it's a string version, a piano version, there's a lot of good covers, but I don't know what it is. I'm not sure if it's any one thing, but this one just has a certain impact. And I have not yet heard a better version than the original on this. This is like one of my favorite intros of any game.
Yeah, mine too. I think it's, along with like the main theme from Chrono Trigger, it's one of those like definitive opening themes that...
Play me.
Yes!
So you guys pretty much said what I was going to say, which was that it's been covered and people try to cover it, but nothing just touches the original. And I think, at least to me, a lot of it's in the violins and like how strong they are, and just the way they sound just kind of made me think. First time I heard it back in 2000 or 1999 or whatever, first time I heard it, I was like, wow, we are really past like the MIDI keyboard and the synthesizer era for video game music, aren't we? And it was honestly really impressive. and it's such a good opening because, again, it's so strong, and then the way it just kind of builds up to the ending there. Like, I think, like, this has got to be one of the most played songs in my video game music library ever.
I think in all of ours, most likely.
I would hope so.
it better be in Mike's, because I don't know how you'd keep your street cred as, super Chrono fanboy if it wasn't.
Oh yeah, don't worry, it's way up there. in my playlist of like 500 Chrono songs.
It's at all.
I don't even know. I don't even know how I got to that number, but that's what I'm at now. Among those songs is the Chronicles of Time album. I talked about it a little bit before, but the 3 Eons tracks are all, I will affectionately call them D-makes. Not that it's my term, but I think that's really what that would be called. Sometimes you take an old song and use modern instrumentation, or you take a different song and go backwards in time. So I think it's really interesting. Each of the 3 tracks has a different kind of theme. I forget, one of them is like Frog and Magus and those themes, all just things that work together thematically. So this one is more, it's kind of like introduction themes, there's a battle theme in there. It's just a really interesting blend of stuff. I just call it, of the 3, I call this like the adventurous one, because it's the themes getting started on your adventure and the battle themes, and it's a really upbeat, interesting take on Chrono Trigger, which I don't think I've really heard before, at least not in all of these songs put together.
Yeah, it was a really good medley, I think. I was able to pick out the different themes, although it helped that I was listening to the entire album and I heard them a lot throughout, but to refresh my memory. But still, a good sort of this is a nice sample platter of Chrono Trigger music. If you want an idea of what Chrono music is like, you can listen to this. And I also wrote down that it seemed like they were trying to emulate old school sound chips with this, which is, considering, that the original game was on what we would consider by today's standards an old school platform. I feel like that's kind of a nice way to work with the music in a new way, but still kind of pay homage to the older systems and one of the older systems that the game originally came out on.
Yes.
You sound hesitant.
I just like hearing different interpretations of songs, whether it be like an updated sound like Chrono Cinematica, or 8-bit like this song here. And it helps that it started out with Zeal's theme, which is one of my other favorites from Chrono Trigger. Of course, I also have 30 favorites from that game, but who's counting? I like to think of Chrono Trigger's music as pretty good, especially for, it's pretty good to begin with, but especially for the 16-bit era, it was some of the best in that era. So this takes it back quite a bit by giving an 8-bit sound, 8-bit sound. And like you said, I like how it blends certain themes together.
Don't die, we're not done yet.
No.
Yes, we have more music to talk about. My pick. It's awesome, and Laura Shigihara is so cool, and, well, I mean that actually totally truthfully. It is awesome, and Laura Shigihara is amazing. The album itself, I think, surprised a lot of people by how many tracks had vocals. It's more vocals than anything else, really. I was perfectly awesome with that. We've had a lot of arrangement albums in the last couple of months, and I usually find myself gravitating towards the remixes that are vocal versions, so that was really cool to have here. And Laura Shigihara has this really pure sounding quality to her voice that fits in really well with Mitsuda's music and with the themes that we got on this album. Shala's theme is another one of those, I think, iconic themes in video games and RPGs. Another one of those themes that, again, me being the baddie that I am, never having played the game, I can still pick out instantly whenever I hear it, and it's another one of those sort of, definitive RPG themes. And this is a really cool rendition of it. Laura Shigihara is singing in it has almost kind of a Japanese sound to it. There are Japanese sounds that are being used, but it's not actually Japanese. It's one of her sort of made-up languages that she uses in some of her work, which was gave it a really cool kind of far away foreign sound to it, to match, what's going on in Chrono Trigger and who Shala is and whatnot. I say this not actually knowing what I'm talking about, but having heard from the internet.
I think you're pretty accurate. I don't know if I'm mixing it up with Final Fantasy VI, because I know it's true of 6, but in the Japanese version of Chrono Trigger, her name was Sarah.
Yes.
Which does not seem very foreign, but it's the same thing with Terra, who was Tina. And I guess the logic was, in Japan, Tina is a foreign name. To us, it sounds like a common name. So I'm not sure if that's how she ended up being named Sarah as well. And I think that's why when it came here, they changed her name too, because like here, Sarah does not sound like a mystical name. So yeah, I think your interpretation of that is right. Even having not played the game, and that's coming from someone who has maybe sort of an obsession with the character.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about this rendition of her theme then, Mike?
I've always loved her character. She's so important to the story. Just the position she's in. It's really tragic, actually. But her story is pretty sad, but just always just been really fascinated by her. And that's another one, like her theme and Frog's theme, there's a lot of covers of them, but there's a lot of good ones out there. So I don't know if this is my absolute favorite, but man, it's up there. I think it's interesting too that just in general, that album having a lot of vocal tracks, I think we get used to modern day stuff. You can put vocals in anything. There's plenty of soundtracks now, like 13.2. 13.2 has just a lot of vocal tracks. But it's interesting on stuff like this because, you're doing arrangements and new versions of songs. Games couldn't even have vocal tracks back then. Mm-hmm. So I just find that really interesting that they did that, because you just couldn't do that before.
Yeah, this was a good opportunity to do it. I like Caitlin where I was a little bit surprised that most of this album was vocal, but it wasn't a bad thing at all. Like, I love that. Like, in Mitsuda's notes in the CD, he says that he's wanted to do this for a long time, especially like the song and the mystery surrounding Shala's character, which I think the song and matches her really well because of the mystery surrounding her at the end of the game, and the song feels in itself like pretty mysterious, and so it's all sad and tragic like Mike says, but it just works well together. And the whole thing with Meg is I don't know if I should be spoiling the game on air, but it's also like 20 years old.
I think you're allowed.
Yeah.
Like, if anyone gets mad, I'm just gonna be like, tough.
I like that you said mystical. That's
yes,
really true of her original song, but I think it really comes through in the vocals here too.
I agree.
I feel like it applies to her, like the whole story surrounding her and her disappearance, and both versions of the song. Like, it just ties so nicely together. And I'm one of those people who paused the game at this part. Back when I didn't own the soundtrack. Paused the game at this part and, like, sat to do my homework. Just, like, have this song playing in the background while I did my homework. We didn't have YouTube back then, okay?
Oh, back in my day.
Back in my day.
We didn't have your fancy YouTubes and your iTunes. And your Google Musics. we had to keep the game playing indefinitely in order to listen to a soundtrack.
Oh yeah, I mean, but that's back in the day. I remember playing Mario 3. Like, you couldn't save Mario 3. We would go and rent that game and literally leave the game on for like 3-4 days at a time. You can't turn it off. You lose all your progress.
I did that. In Mario 3, I would get to like World 8 and I'd be so tired. I'm like, no, I don't want to start over in the morning. So I'd leave the TV on, go to sleep, come back to it in the morning and keep playing.
Yeah.
Well, then I think that means it's time to move on to our third and final block of the episode, in which, Mike, you have our first pick.
Oh, I'm so excited about this song. I had another version of this song, but then Chronicles of Time came out, and I like this one better. So I picked Gato, all in caps for some reason, Must Be Respected from Chronicles of Time.
I thought his name was always in caps.
But it's in caps and little periods. It's abbreviated.
Maybe it stands for something that we've never learned.
Maybe it does. I can't hear this track title without thinking of, I picture, you guys know the Phoenix Wright pose in all the logos. Yeah. I picture Chrono in that pose, screaming, Gato must be respected.
Now I'm never going to unsee that. We need, like, Mike to get on some Photoshop work there and make that happen or something.
Okay.
I
do
do
it.
the motion.
Yeah, I'll do it right now while Liz introduces her song.
Anyway, my song is also from Chronicles of Time because I had to show it some love. Mike talked earlier in the show about these kind of songs that are in sets of 3. I picked one from the Epic series. I don't know if the word is supposed to be a mix between epoch and epic.
I think so.
This is like and this series is like a guitar take on certain groups of themes. So I picked that from Chronicles of Time, Epic 3.
And then I have our final pick for the block. Couldn't not really showcase this track on a Chrono-themed episode. It's Radical Dreamers. I guess the subtitle now is Le Trésor Interdit, although mine was always just Unstealable Jewel. We were trying to figure out why it's in French. It's not in French in the liner notes in the booklet in the Japanese version of the soundtrack, but whatever. Anyway, Radical Dreamers from Chrono Cross. Awesome song. So let's listen to Gato Must Be Respected from Chronicles of Time, Epic Part 3, also from Chronicles of Time, and Radical Dreamers from Chrono Cross.
ずっと私の胸の奥にいつからか響いていた夜露の雫よりもかすかなささやきだけど凍てつく星の闇へ紡ぐ祈りが遠いあなたの空に届くように
Do we all mutually respect Gato now?
Always did.
Because he
I respect his choice of string, of guitars, I mean.
Yes. I don't know, that song, there's one on Chrono Cinematica that's good too, although unfortunately the Gato part of the song is really short. So otherwise I probably would have used that. But it's such a great song. I've heard so many different covers of that. There's rock covers. There's, on this same album, there's a kind of a rap hip-hop cover of it, which is hilarious. Which unfortunately I think Liz wanted me to pick, but I like this one. I'm a big fan of acoustic stuff and all things Gato. So this song gets stuck in my head. And it's probably because when you play Chrono Trigger and you run into him at the fair at the beginning, you quickly find out that if you want to get your little points for the fair, he is the quickest way to do it. I think that was my first experience farming something in a game.
Wow, all the way back in Chrono Trigger. It's like it was just grooming you for Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh yeah.
Like 20 years later.
Because you could play the little dumb carnival games and get 1 point, but you go fight Gato and you get 15 points. Like, why would you even bother with the other ones? So what's that?
I don't even remember what the points were good for. I'm a bad Chrono Trigger fan.
I don't remember. I remember the song, and I remember getting it down to a science because you could only fight him once on screen. So you would sprint off screen and sprint back on as quickly as possible so you could farm more and get more points and have a real problem.
I have an important question though.
Yes.
Can I respect Gato if I want to beat him up for silver points all the time? Can I still respect him at the same time, at the end of the day?
Hey, he welcomes you to. He was built to
That's
give you
true.
silver points for beating him up.
That's true. He did sing a little song to get us to do that.
Yes.
He exists to get beaten up.
That's kind of a sad life.
Yeah, Luca really grew up after that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna build a robot that only wants to be beaten on.
But yes, I did want Mike to pick that other song, and honestly, if he didn't pick a Gato song, I would have picked the one that he mentioned that we'll play on another episode one day. It is probably one of the catchiest songs in the game. It's hard to get out of your head, even if you've only heard it like once. And I love the goofy rock whatever covers, but this is just totally different. It was just as fun though.
Yeah, it's got a great energy to it with the guitars and the sort of you can hear them I guess tapping on the body of the guitar a little bit to create a bit of percussion there, which is a cool little effect. I also thought it was a really small detail, but right at the very end, there's as the track is winding down, there's like that one little riff from the Chrono Trigger main theme, which is a nice little nod.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a fun little track. I mean, I just like listening to it.
It's hard to do a cover of the Gato song and not make it fun in some way. That's why I love it so much.
Well, do you also like our next track? I hope you do, because you picked it.
I suppose. Okay, so as I mentioned, I picked Epic 3 out of one of those 3 set songs from Chronicles of Time. Epic 3 covered, as you can hear, some of the more epic songs of the game. It starts out with the second of the 2 regular boss themes. The second of 2 seems to cover the bigger boss themes I find in Chrono Trigger, which, you don't hear that covered as much, but it's such it just gives us like I'm a badass, can you actually get past me part, which I had a lot of those problems in my first run of Chrono Trigger. So that's a lot of what I associate that boss theme with. But anyway, and it also blends into an interesting mix of Singing Mountain, which was it was for a while an unreleased track until the DS Chrono Trigger, of course, and Shallow's theme. Even though we kind of touched on that earlier in the episode, it's still nice to hear like different takes on it. And on guitar, it was very interesting, but very welcome at the same time.
It's really interesting hearing a rock mix of
Yeah,
that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 tracks I love, not 3 that I imagined being put together, especially the first one with the other 2. But I do, and I admit, I confess that I love like rock takes on things.
Do you know, I didn't count or anything, but there's 3 there. Do each of the 3 tracks have 3 tracks in them?
I didn't count the other 2 because I gotta go back and listen to them again. Sometimes it feels like there's more, so maybe it's not exactly 3 for all of them. But they're definitely all medleys, which is what I like about Chronicles of Time overall. So again, if we haven't mentioned it enough, listeners should go out and get that if you like Chrono at all.
Yes, I concur. Actually, there's something really interesting that the album does. To me, it felt like it was grouping in the different discs, different styles of music. Like the first disc seemed to be kind of like rock arrangements. The second disc was more acoustic, I want to say, and then there was discs that were orchestral and jazzy in nature. It was kind of an interesting way to arrange the album sort of by musical genre. So you could almost like take every disc is a different take on the music. Like you might have a rock album, Chrono Trigger mini album, and then you have a jazz Chrono Trigger mini album, and then maybe a smorgasbord mini album. Because he doesn't like smorgasbords.
I just love the name.
I know, right?
Yeah. I'd have to listen again to make sure, but because the people that put this one together did the Spectrum of Mana album years ago, which is the same kind of treatment for Secret of Mana, where it's just all kinds of different styles, a ton of artists coming together. I like that that's a thing now that different groups are doing. You have that and the Materia albums. Yeah. But that album was the same thing, where each of the three or four discs had a different theme to it, like a musical theme to it. So I guess that's just how they do things. But I think I agree. It's an interesting way of grouping tracks together.
So check it out. Listen to it.
Love it. And love the track names, because we do.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So many good track names.
We'll make sure that we have a link to a place where you can check out the music and purchase on our show notes. So be sure to look for that.
Actually, I do want to say one thing about that. One thing interesting they were doing with this album is that whether you buy it through Louder or iTunes, all of their proceeds from the album are actually going to Doctors Without Borders, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's only like a $15, $20 album anyway, so it's not expensive for that much music. But it's really
there's a
cool that they're
lot
doing that.
of music.
Yeah.
I paid $15 and I got like 81 songs. I can't complain. All Chrono themed. Life is good.
It's a win-win-win. 3 times the win, I think.
Win-win.
Yep.
It's not expensive,
5 times the
lots
win.
of music,
That's it.
and you can feel good about where your money's going.
Exactly.
All right, well, we have come to the last track of the block, Radical Dreamers from Chrono Cross. This was, when the game came out, this was still kind of in the early days of RPGs or just games in general having like an ending vocal song. Like out of the games I played, I'd only heard vocal ending themes in 2 games before Chrono Cross, and that was Xenogears and Final Fantasy VIII. So this was still kind of, in those early times when it might have been a surprise to hear an ending vocal theme. I actually wasn't expecting this when I played the game, and it's an interesting choice of an ending theme. It's really simple. You just have a guitar and vocals sung in Japanese. And it's a really beautiful but still kind of melancholy sounding song. That was my little attempt at sounding songs. That sounded lame, I'm sorry. But the music is not lame. I was trying to find out why it was originally in Japanese, because and maybe it was just something simple as Mitsuda's preferences when he was composing, or the vocal artist herself, because in other Square Enix titles it was kind of interesting with the original was sung in English, and even in the soundtrack in Japan it's in English, to the point where the original soundtrack for Xenogears has the vocal themes in English, and they didn't get Japanese versions until Creed came out, which is an interesting kind of.
That.
Yeah, I was too. It was cool, but it was also kind of like, okay.
I remember going onto forums and back when Xenogears came out, because I got it at release, and asking what did it is there a Japanese version of this song, or is it like this in the Japanese version? I eventually found out that no, there's only the English song, like you said before Creed, but it was still surprising at the time.
Yeah. So I don't know, like I said, it could have just been composer preference, but I think it's sort of similar to Final Fantasy X's theme, Steki Dane. It doesn't need to be in English. The emotion and the feelings get across just as fine, I think, in Japanese. Whether you're just listening to it and you have no idea, you don't have no idea Japanese, you're just listening to the pretty voice, or if you look at translated lyrics and you see kind of what she's saying, what she's singing, it still, I think, just kind of works as it is. And it was a really poignant, I think, is the word I'm looking for, ending for Chrono Cross.
Yeah, it kind of fits with the feeling towards the end of that game, actually.
Yeah, it does.
And the last fight too that music is very kind of stripped down.
Yeah, that was a really cool track, I think.
Yeah, that was an interesting fight and an interesting track.
Yeah.
So we all came together. That was still one of my favorite ending themes. I even bought the piano music back when whoever it was actually put out piano like
the sheet music.
songbooks.
Oh
Yeah,
my god, I did too.
Yeah,
I did
have
that for
too.
Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, and Xenogears. I don't think I bought any others, but there's others I probably like downloaded from the internet or whatever. And I actually did play piano back then. Like I wasn't like super advanced like at all, but I I even like my Japanese has never been good, but I learned the lyrics just so I could like sing it and attempt it on piano, which never turned out well, but it was sure as hell fun to try. That's how much I love that song.
It is a really good song.
It's so pretty. I love that song. It's interesting too. I was thinking while you were talking about it how you didn't expect a vocal theme, and that's really hard to do now with games because the soundtracks come out in Japan and we hear them on YouTube and we know what's going to be in the game if you choose to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we heard most of the Xenoblade Chronicles X soundtrack before we played the game.
Well, you
Yes.
definitely did.
So it's hard to be surprised by stuff like that anymore, but I felt the same way. I was like, I was like, oh, what is this?
I think I knew about Radical Dreamers at least, but yeah, back then it was usually still a surprise.
Yeah. So we ended up picking like 2 really sad songs from Chrono Cross. Although I guess there is a lot of sad music in that game, come to think of it.
There is a lot of sad music.
Yeah, some of the best ones are a little sad and make you want to cry a little bit.
And the other one just wants you to like play the game already because it opens it up.
Yeah, really good choice. I'm glad we closed on that one.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to.
It was very fitting.
Yeah. So you've reached that time again, dear listeners. The end of another episode, but we always have more in the works. So we don't know yet what we're doing next. You might have noticed that Stephen Meyerink, Tales on the Boards, is not with us for this episode. He's been kind of slammed with work in Japan, so he had to take a pass on this episode, but we should hopefully have him back for our next episode. Who knows what the theme will be, but it will be something awesome. In the meantime, as always, do rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Let us know, what you like, what you don't like, if you have any ideas, or if you just want to, gab about awesome video game music. You can, of course, reach us on the boards or through our fancy email address, which is music@rpgfan.com. We always love to hear from, everyone, but especially, our fans and fans of RPG music, because I think we're all an awesome bunch, and it's always great to talk about awesome music. So for myself, for Mike, and our special guest, Liz, thank you for joining us. And in true Rhythm Encounter fashion, we always let our guests pick our exit surprise track. So Liz, what do you have for us?
I picked, just because it's so much fun, and I don't think it gets enough attention, is Ayla's original theme from Chrono Trigger.
Ooh, nice pick, yeah.
Good choice. Very exciting.
Thought so.
All right, so taking us out will be Ayla's theme from Chrono Trigger. Enjoy, and we will catch you next time.
You're listening to the Final Fantasy 8 track, aren't you?
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Take it in, Liz. Take it all in.
Yeah.
What? I feel so grossed out now.